Hello, everyone who is out there listening. In case you missed it, my name is Abby, and I'm co-host for Her Campus Radio, a show hosted by WINR Eagle Air to give the women in our student organization, Her Campus, a platform to be heard, and of course, awesome music to listen to. If you're just joining, you're in for a treat. We're about to interview our member, Shreya Jacob, on a topic that means a lot to her. If any education majors are listening, turn it up. This is a conversation you're not going to want to miss. And stay tuned, because right after we have more music coming up. So please welcome Shreya Jacob. She is here on Her Campus Radio to speak a little bit about herself and then a topic that is super important to her. So hey Shreya, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am doing great. I am so glad you can make it today. Tell me a little bit about yourself first.
So, as Abby mentioned, my name is Shreya Jacob. I am a junior middle-level education major in the College of Education. I am concentrating in both science and English. And I guess I could go for a fun fact. I'm not originally from here. It's something I like to tell everybody. I'm originally from up north, so I moved here about 3.5 years ago. I'm still very salty about it. It's fine. But yeah, that's just a little bit about myself.
So first I want to ask, why did you choose middle education?
When I first moved here, I had a teacher, my AP environmental teacher. She reignited my passion for science that I didn't know I had. And all my life I wanted to be a high school English teacher. And then I realized, well, science is also a big passion of mine. Did not want to double major in science and English. So Winthrop had this really cool program where you could choose 2 concentrations and teach. So that's what kind of brought me here to Winthrop in the middle level program.
Okay, well that's really awesome to hear. I know Winthrop has a great education program, and a lot of our members are also education majors. So I always wondered what about Her Campus kind of draws that major over to our organization.
It wasn't major related. It was more, I loved to write. Writing is more of a creative outlet for me than anything. Ever since I got to college, or rather ever since I moved down south, I never found the time to write creatively. And so when I found Her Campus out of the blue one day, I was like, let's apply. Let's see what happens. And I can say with a lot of confidence that this is one of the best decisions I have made in my entire life. Love the articles I write, and I love that I can bring a multicultural aspect to a otherwise diverse club.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think one of the great things about Winthrop is how inclusive it is, and with Her Campus, I really want to make sure that shines, just because our students have a lot of different stories to share, whether it's their background or, personal experiences, which is kind of what brings you here today. I know you wanted to share something that really meant a lot to you. Do you want to kind of introduce that?
Yeah, so I, listening to me, you would never tell, but I am a South Asian female. My parents immigrated here in 1999. They have been together for 22 years, and I am what I like to call a first-generation American college student. So I am the first of 2, my younger sister and I, to go to an American school, to go to an American college. Both of my parents, they went to school in India. They know all about the Indian college system, but they knew nothing here. So I guess kind of the whole idea of it, and yes, I am an education student, which is an even bigger paradox, because when you think South Asian, you think engineer, lawyer, or doctor, and I am neither of those. I had 3 options, and I chose the least possible option of all of them. So I guess the topic that I wanted to talk about was being a minority in a majority, field, if that makes sense. So the education field is dominated mostly by Caucasian females. And looking around, especially now, looking around in my classes, I am the only one of South Asian descent or brown skin that looks like me in all of my classes. So it honestly can get a little tough at times to decide, like, hey, do I really want to keep going? Do I really want to continue? But because I'm so close, I can see it. I literally can see the finish line in front of me. I'm going to keep going. So that's kind of what I'm here to talk about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And that kind of makes me wonder, like, growing up, I'm sure you, like, ached for that representation. Is that something that pushed you into doing this?
Yeah. Like I said, I came from the North. So all of my friends that I knew of were either going to go be doctors, lawyers, or engineers. Not many lawyers, but more doctors and engineers. But I knew I wanted to be a teacher since the 7th grade. I had so many teachers in middle school, so many teachers in high school that really reaffirmed that for me. And the reason I chose this, another big reason, was because, and it's something that we talk about in the education department all the time, is our why. Why did we go into this? And so my why, it's changed multiple times, but the two biggest reasons is, one, because it's the road less traveled, especially in my culture, but also to show kids that may look like me and may be diverse and only have a couple options, that you can do whatever you put your mind to. Like, it's not really, you're not confined to this box that society puts you in. It's more, you do whatever you want, and if people want to talk smack, they can talk smack. But you just have to keep going, and you have to push yourself to realize, like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is where I'm going with my life. If people want to talk about it, let them talk. I don't, at this point, I've kind of, like, said, I don't care what they have to say. So,
what other types of adversities have you faced, like, during your schooling years in college, preparing for this career?
I think the biggest one, and I touched on this before, is the fact that literally nobody in any of my classes looks like me. Yes, I have, many, many African American males and females, for that matter, in all of my classes, and I love that. It's definitely something that is very, very hard to get through. And I was talking to my RA a couple weeks ago, and he said, or rather last semester, and he talked about this program called Me Mister, which is another, like, education-based program where African American males can get funding to go through college. And I told him my story, and he was like, wow, I didn't even realize that this was a big problem. And I think it's great that you are going down the road less traveled because you have all these adversities. So like I said, I really, really want to show the world, and I want to show the people around me, like, hey, look, I did it. I graduated with a bachelor's in education, and I am now teaching the next generation. So deal with it. It's not something that you can talk me out of, because they have tried to talk me out of it. They have tried to say, why don't you go get your master's in business, or why don't you go get your medical degree? I don't want that. I want to be able to make sustainable change, and I have realized very, very early that begins in the classroom. And so that is kind of, yeah.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I noticed you said, your parents were the ones who were, kind of weary about that decision. Has anyone else, like maybe your friends, have they ever made any comments about your decision?
Not too much. My parents, it wasn't until they saw that I was really happy doing this in college that they were like, okay, we'll not support it, because they've always supported my decision. It's just, they thought it was a phase for the longest time, and then they realized, wait, this is actually what she wants to do, and I'm proud of her for doing that. So now it's more the community I was brought up in. They've never seen somebody trail off that path. Like, I have a friend who's going to med school in about a year and a half. She's going to go be a pediatric doctor. Like, I still compare myself every single day. Like, what would happen if I dropped out and transferred and went and got my changed my major from education to biology and went and got my med degree? Like, what would happen? Would people look at me differently? Probably not, because they'd be like, oh, look, she's going to go be a doctor, go be like her. But because I'm doing this, I still get looked at differently, which is fine, because now I have my parents supporting me, and I have my parents saying, hey, this is what she wants to do. Let her do that. So that's kind of where I'm at. I've given up trying to defend myself. I'm going to have to keep defending myself, but not to the people around me. If they don't want to listen, they don't want to listen.
You know, you shouldn't have to defend yourself because, I mean, I think everyone can agree, whether they want to admit it or not, being a teacher is one of the most important jobs. Like, you guys are literally the backbone of our country. And it's just such a shame people dismiss it so easily. But I know before we started recording, you mentioned that you're starting your field placement soon. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of like where you're going with that?
Yeah, I will be in Louisville, out in Sumter, Louisville Middle School. I'm kind of nervous, I'm not going to lie. I have not been in a classroom since the spring of my freshman semester, and that was only for like a month and a half, not even, before we were kicked out of campus. But I know this is going to happen. I know I'm going to walk in and they're going to be like, wait, what is she doing here? She's not supposed to be here. And I know the weird looks I'm going to get, and I know all of that, but I know deep down too that like, this is what I've worked so hard to do. This is what I can finally start impacting and reacting that change to the next generation. And if I don't do this, then I can't prove it to both myself and the people around me that I'm doing this. So like I said, I'm going to have to keep justifying and defending myself, and that's fine. But if I don't do, this is just the biggest step that I have taken in my life. And so realizing that and figuring out what's next for me is gonna be a life-changing decision. But I think I'm ready for it. And like I said, if I get the backlash, I get the backlash.
I can tell you're confident. I can tell you were ready for this. You were about to go into that field and make such a change. And, you know, this might be kind of off-topic question, but not really. But I must ask, what lesson are you most excited to teach?
Wow. I'm drafting a lesson for one of my methods classes right now, and it's, this is a theoretical lesson, so I won't really teach this lesson, but eventually I want to be able to ask the students to make predictions on character traits, and I'm going to, show them all different kinds of characters and all of the different, it'll just be a random book that we're reading, right? And so I'd pick and choose a couple characters from there and say, what traits make them themselves? And I want to be able to incorporate diversity both into my lessons and the characters that I choose in English, and also in my science lessons, in, the different inquiry lessons, and all my ed students that listen will know what I mean when I say inquiry. But all those inquiry lessons that we talk about in science, where you have to engage your students and you have to do all of this, I want to be able to bring some diversity in there too, and show them that, hey, scientists are not all old white men. There are some really, really, really cool female scientists, like Ada Twist, and the woman that founded DNA, and all of these other people. They were the backbone of founding science. And so if I can show them that, then I can show them that, hey, you can do what you want to do and make a lasting impact on the world.
Well, that definitely ties back to your original topic, and I'm so glad I asked you that question, because I feel like during this interview, you really kind of showed what Her Campus is all about and what I hope to see from our members. And really, I just want to thank you so much for coming and speaking. Is there anything else that you want to add that we didn't get to touch on? I think that's about it. This is a topic that I'm really, really passionate about, and so I'm glad that, I could speak on it, and I hope that from this interview, and to anybody who's listening out there,
Know that, like, your passion is your passion. You can make a career out of it no matter what. And being able to show the people around you that you really, really care about this topic and you really care about what you're doing in life is super, super important. And again, I've said this many, many times in the interview, but don't do it, especially if you're going into teaching and you're like me. Don't care about the money. Yes, you need money to survive. That's a given. But be able to do what you love, be able to, whether it's walk into that classroom, walk into that lab, paint, draw, do whatever you need to do to love your job. Because I think that's what comes first. You have to love your job in order to keep going every day and in order to get up out of bed and walk into work every single day.
Perfect. One more thing. What's your next article going to be on?
My first 2 weeks in the field and what I have learned.
That was so perfect, Shreya. Thank you so much for coming on and just speaking about something that means a lot to you. If you're interested in reading more work by Shreya, just head on to our website, hercampus.com. That was, again, spectacular. And now we're going to get back to music. Join us next week at 5 o'clock to hear more from our members.